A very good evening to all of you. This video is third in our series on the cyst of odontogenic origin, where we are talking about the radicular cyst. Now, I've already made a video on radicular cyst, but this is going to be your 5-minute summary for exams. Okay, if you want a more detailed video where I explain more, you can check out in the playlist. Okay, I have also covered the odontogenic tumors, so you can check them out as well. So before we go further into the radicular cyst, a quick revision. A cyst is a pathological cavity. Its contents are fluid, semi-fluid, or gaseous, and it is not created by the accumulation of pus. We had also seen the classification of cyst of the jaws, which were epithelial and non-epithelial, developmental and inflammatory. And the most common odontogenic cyst and the most common inflammatory odontogenic cyst is the radicular cyst. And today we'll be talking about the same. So this is an odontogenic cyst derived from the cell rest of molasses in response to inflammation. So this is a inflammatory odontogenic cyst. It is called the radicular cyst because it arises in relation to the root, and the periapical cyst because it is in relation to the apex of the root, right? In this diagram, you have the tooth root apex and a radiolucency in relation to that. It is the most common odontogenic cyst, always associated with a non-vital tooth. In its etiopathogenesis, we are going to study it in 3 phases. First is the cells of origin. These are the cell rest of molasses, which are the remnants of Hertwig's epithelial root sheath that are always present in your periodontal ligament. The proliferation of these cell rest of molasses, it occurs in response to a dental caries or trauma. Okay, and the key event is an inflammatory reaction. So there is dental caries trauma causing the proliferation of cell rest of molasses in 3 phases, which is your phase of initiation, the phase of cyst formation, and the phase of cyst enlargement. Right. So in the phase of cyst initiation, you have the proliferation of the cell rest in an island form. Okay. In the phase of cystification, the central cells of the island, they do not get nutrition and there is liquefaction necrosis. In the phase of enlargement, the central cells that have broken down, they release your proteins that causes an increase in osmotic pressure, causing a fluid ingress and an increased hydrostatic pressure causing cyst enlargement. So island of cells, central cells not getting nutrition, so liquefaction necrosis, further enlargement by increased osmotic pressure and increased hydrostatic pressure. In the clinical features, we see it occurs at any age, mostly the permanent teeth, male predilection, most commonly the maxillary anterior teeth, and followed by the maxillary posterior teeth. In the presentation, we see it is always associated with a non-vital tooth, majority of the cases being asymptomatic. When symptomatic, it might lead to pain, and an acute exacerbation can lead to abscess, cellulitis, fistula. If it grows too much in size, it will cause cortical plate expansion. So in this image, you have a swelling in respect to 2-1 and 2-2. If I do a pulp vitality test, it will be negative. If I were to percuss this tooth, it might be tenderon positive. Okay, there is no signs of caries, so the history might give you trauma. And the 5th thing is, if I allow it to continue growing, it will cause your labial cortical expansion, right? It might already be doing that. Radiographically, what you see is the same swelling, okay, in relation to 2-1 and 2-2. You see that this swelling, this radiolucency is round to oval in shape. It is well delineated with a radiopaque rim. The associated teeth show a loss of lamina dura and sometimes the resorption of the root. The cortical plate expansion might be seen on your occlusal radiograph, and the radiographic variants are 3, which is the apical in relation to the apex, the lateral, which is in between 2 roots, and the residual, which is a retained radicular cyst in an extracted tooth. Histopathologically, we study it under 3 phases, which is the lumen, the lining epithelium, and the connective tissue capsule. So in the lumen, what you have is a fluid of low concentration, may contain cholesterol crystals and keratin. More importantly, in the cystic lining, it is non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, which shows spongiosis and inflammatory cell infiltration and proliferates in an arcading pattern with Rushton bodies and Russell bodies. So in this diagram, you have the lining epithelium. It is composed of your stratified squamous epithelium. Okay, it is non-keratinized. Right now, you see that it is proliferating in such a way that it is sort of proliferating around your connective tissue, right? It is arcading around your connective tissue, and this is called the arcading pattern. The fourth thing is the hyaline arc-shaped bodies. These are arc-shaped hyaline bodies, which are called the Rushton bodies, and sometimes the Russell bodies in response to inflammation. The next important thing is the connective tissue capsule. So here there are two important points: inflammatory cell infiltration, dense inflammatory cell infiltration, all your lymphocytes, plasma cells, mast cells adjacent to the lining epithelium, and cholesterol clefts. So these are clefts, right? Spindle-shaped empty spaces you see on H&E sections. Why these form is when there is chronic inflammation in your capsule, there is extravasation of RBCs, and they disintegrate into the hemosiderin and cholesterol, and the cholesterol part of it is washed off during tissue processing, leaving empty spaces. In the histopathological section, you have the connective lining epithelium. This is your connective tissue capsule, and the connective tissue capsule shows you intense inflammation and also cholesterol clefts. And the lining epithelium is, as you can see, non-keratinized. The treatment, there are two lines. One is root canal therapy with enucleations. You do an RCT and then you enucleate it with surgical intervention. And the second is extraction with curettage. So you extract this tooth and then you curette the apical zone, right? Now, if you leave the cyst behind, okay, now I've done the entire procedure, I've done RCT or extraction, and I've not left it behind. I've left the cyst behind. That would be your residual cyst, which is a retained radicular cyst, right? So some review questions for you. What is the most common location? What is the origin? And what are residual cysts? Two MCQ questions, which is all of the following are inflammatory odontogenic cysts except, and cholesterol crystals are seen in which of the following cysts? To summarize, the radicular cyst is an odontogenic cyst. It is the most common odontogenic cyst, which is an inflammatory odontogenic cyst. It occurs in response to dental caries or trauma, grows in three phases: initiation, formation, enlargement. There's proliferation of cell rest of malar phase. The clinical features: any age, permanent teeth, male predilection, maxillary anteriors. In the presentation, always a non-vital tooth. Majority is asymptomatic. The histopathology, we've studied it in 3 steps, which is the lumen, low concentration fluid, the lining epithelium, which was non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium in an arcading pattern with Rushton bodies. And the third was the connective tissue capsule with intense inflammatory cell infiltrate and cholesterol clefts. Radiographically, it was a well-demarcated round or oval radiolucency. Treatment, RCT with enucleation or extraction with curettage. So with this, I've tried to cover it as fast as I could. I hope you could understand something out of it, and I hope it helps you with your exams. For more such videos, you can subscribe and let me know what videos you want to watch next. So thank you and have a good day.